Positive economic growth expected in 2019. And in our crosstalk, Vietnamese property market to thrive this year. Hello there and welcome to the first edition of BizLine in 2019. We do hope that you have enjoyed your holiday with families and friends. And as usual, let's begin with some economic highlights over the past week. The global economy is expected to be complicated this year, which will significantly affect the economic growth target of Vietnam. However, Vietnam's positive economic results last year are the base for this year's positive growth. This was discussed at an online government meeting with authorities of 63 localities. 2018 is considered to be the most successful year in the country's socio-economic development, with record numbers of GDP growth, exports and budget collection. This year, the government leaders suspect that the trade war will be more complicated and the Industrial Revolution 4.0 will have a strong impact on many aspects. Therefore, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc has directed ministries and localities to focus on ensuring macroeconomic stability, control inflation and improve the business environment, as these will be the foundation for growth. The 11-member Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, officially came into force on December the 30th, creating a free trade area covering more than one-tenth of the global economy. The CPTPP is one of the most comprehensive trade deals ever concluded and strips 98% of tariffs for 11 countries with a combined GDP of more than $13.5 trillion and close to 500 million consumers. The CPTPP will cut tariffs on agriculture and industrial products, ease investment and regulations, and enhance protection of intellectual property. It is expected to promote economic growth and poverty reduction, create more jobs, and improve living conditions for people of member nations. Vietnam's export turnover set a new record last year, estimated at $244 billion, up $30 billion compared to 2017. Export revenue of the domestic economic sector rose over 16%, while that of the foreign direct investment, or FDI sector, expanded by 13.2%, accounting for almost 72% of the total turnover. Many key exports gained high growth, with computers, electronics and components, textiles and government, machinery, equipment and spare parts. Growth was also seen in the earnings from farm produce, including fruit and vegetables, coffee and rice. However, crude oil export in the period fell in both value and volume compared to 2017, reaching only $1.8 billion. Ministers of Finance Đinh Tiến Dũng struck the gong, opening the first trading session of this year at the Hanoi Stock Exchange on January the 2nd. At the ceremony, the minister affirmed 5 key ways to develop Vietnam's stock market. They include restructuring the market, merging the Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City stock exchanges, developing new securities products, upgrading the market, and completing the legal framework for a securities market. Investors are waiting for results of business performances in the fourth quarter to decide their future investments, and some are positive about banking stocks. Experts forecast that the market will experience fluctuations but still grow this year, thanks to macroeconomic stability and some free trade agreements that will take effect this year. Vietnam's Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, in last December reached 53.8 points according to Nikkei. The figure was down from the record high of 56.5 points in November. However, it was close to the average for all of last year. According to global information provider IHS Markit, 2018 witnessed the best results for the manufacturing sector since the first PMI report in 2011. It says that last year's results will create momentum for this year. With the index, Vietnam continues to lead ASEAN, proving the country's manufacturing sector still maintains the highest growth in the region. Regarding the use of public assets to pay investors in BT or build transfer projects, the Prime Minister has just issued a new resolution to limit the loss of state property while implementing this form of investment. Accordingly, BT contracts signed before January the 1st last year, in which payment has yet to be completed, shall continue to be paid according to the signed plan. As for contracts signed after the above time, the Prime Minister asked the local ministries to review and negotiate in accordance with the law. If in the process of reviewing violations were detected, they must adjust, even cancel the contracts, recover the lost public assets, and issue penalties to the groups and individuals responsible. Those are some economic highlights over the past week. Up next in our crosstalk, we'll discuss the forecast for the Vietnamese property market in 2019. Vietnamese real estate market in 2018 witnessed stable development with no major fluctuations. This could be seen in the stable number of transactions, decreased level of inventory, and stable prices. Market watchers therefore expect similar scenarios to take place in 2019. Would that be possible? We now delve into the current situation now and do some forecasts for the market performances next year through our talk with Mr. Matt Powell, Director of Savills Hanoi, who have spent years working and analyzing the Vietnamese property market. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, taking a look back, could you please sum up the Vietnamese real estate market performance in 2018?
I think in one word it would be robust. So across the country we've seen very strong performance, particularly in the residential sector, so in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, but also the other secondary cities as well. This is driven by very strong macro economy, so very strong growth in GDP, a lot of FDI coming into the country, very strong retail sales, a lot of growth in hospitality and international arrivals, for example. If we look at some of the other sectors, so the commercial property sectors, the office market performing very well in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. Occupancy rates are very high in the CBDs of both cities and in some of the outer districts. So this is driven by a growth in confidence, right, in all the office occupiers. So manufacturing companies, service companies are all expanding, and more companies coming to Vietnam. So a very thriving office market. Some of the standout winners have been the hospitality sector. It's been very strong. So I think if you've traveled in the last year or so in Vietnam, you've seen that some of the cities, Da Nang and Nha Trang, etc., have been, in really high demand. Lots of international arrivals, which is up 30% year on year, and that's a huge number to increase by a third for international arrivals in the country. So that's very positive for hotel owners, and we've seen a bit of a boom in hotel construction up and down the country. One of the other standout winners for the year was the industrial property sector. So Vietnam, a hotspot for industrial investment and manufacturing. So a lot more industrial real estate happening in some of the hubs near the major ports in the north, south, and central cities as well. So
chúng ta vẫn là một thị trường rất hấp dẫn và đang đứng thứ 3 trong cái khu vực ASEAN.
2019 sẽ tiếp tục là một năm của thị trường phát triển ổn định và có sự thanh lọc.
Tiếp tục tăng trưởng rất là mạnh ở tất cả các phân khúc, chúng ta phải khẳng định điều đấy. Và nếu mà sâu hơn thì trong vòng 5 năm tới.
Industry insiders agree that the Vietnamese real estate market shows no signs of slowing down and will keep growing in 2019, most likely. Vietnam has a population of 95 million, where 50% are aged below 30, and with a rapidly growing middle class.
Market research firm Nielsen estimated the size of the middle class to reach 44 million in 2020, and the figure could be even 95 million in 2030. And this is the target of the Asian investors who are focusing on the high end of the market. And another reason is Vietnam's location, which makes traveling from and to most Asian countries so quick and easy.
Demographic changes are part of Vietnam's real estate overall transformation, evolving from the speculation-driven cycle in the mid-2000s into a more diversified and stable environment.
Những cái chính sách của chính phủ về điều tiết vĩ mô về lạm phát chẳng hạn thì năm tới đang kiểm soát ở mức dưới 4%. thì cái điều này điều rất tốt. Và cái điểm thứ hai ấy, là có một phần chính phủ điều tiết về cái tín dụng trong bất động sản, khẳng định là chính phủ đang kiểm soát về cái nguồn cung, cái tốc độ đô thị hóa của Việt Nam đang rất cao, là một đất nước đang phát triển có thể hàng đầu của châu Á và thế giới, nên là cái tốc độ di dân cơ học từ các cái tỉnh đến các cái thành phố lớn đang rất là tốt, và cụ thể là cái số lượng người giàu cũng đang tăng rất nhanh.
Suffering from a housing bust in 2009, the market recovered in 2013 and has seen a constant and fast growth since then.
Now, you've mentioned a little bit about the new trends in the real estate market in Vietnam. So, do you expect any new trends coming in this year?
In urban development particularly, we're seeing a trend towards smart cities, a lot of urban management and smart city development. A lot of this is being brought in by some of the regional investors, particularly Japan, Korea, etc., Singapore. We're seeing a trend towards higher tech homes. So people are looking for these additional facilities in their homes, and they have higher expectations. Quite often these might be first-time purchasers, so people in their 20s, for example, who will have higher expectations for the connectivity of their property. So there's a change in demand in the product side, so the design, the function. If we look geographically, then we're still seeing more and more demand for some of these outer districts in the cities. So if we look at Hanoi, for example, so Long Bien, Gia Lâm, Dong An, starting to come to the fore now, and will continue into 2019. If we look at Ho Chi Minh City, we've got the spread into 2TM and other districts of that city as well. Da Nang and some of the other secondary cities, Haiphong particularly, up in Van Don, near the new airport, are really developing. So there's a geographical trend for new hotspots, a technical trend, and also a change in products for 2019. I think the key factor, I guess, or the key word would be, sophistication. It's becoming a much more sophisticated market. Buyers know what they want, they know what they need, and they're making sure that developers are providing it.
Could you explain a little bit more about the hotspots in the real estate market that you've mentioned earlier?
So geographically, Vietnam has a lot to offer. So we've got our major cities, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City. These are expanding and growing cities. So there's new urban districts being opened up by new infrastructure developments. So what previously were inaccessible locations are now very, very potential residential or commercial locations. So the spread of the city is changing. It's not just, if we look at Hanoi, for example, it's not just Hoang Kiem, which is the CBD anymore. In the commercial sector, we've seen multiple CBDs and multiple business districts. If we look at resort destinations, for example, all this is driven by infrastructure, right? So if it's a new airport or a new bridge or a new road or a new port, then there's also going to be interesting property investment opportunities. So you'll see that people have started investing quite heavily in south of Hoi An down towards Tam Kỳ, for example. It's been quite active. We've seen people, Van Don, for example, has been very active with the new airport. So any way you see a new infrastructure development, then it's something to keep an eye on, certainly. And we'll see this with the metro stations in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City eventually, hopefully. We'll see new areas in the city become and new micro areas within the city. If you're within 50 meters of a metro station, for example, that's going to be quite a value add to your property versus 1 or 2 kilometers from a metro station. So
now moving on, real estate is among the biggest contributors to the FDI investments. So what are your expectations in terms of FDI inflows into the Vietnamese property market this year?
Continuing to boom. We're constantly seeing mainly regional property investors who are actively seeking to make new investments. So quite often it's not a lack of desire. That figure could be much higher. It's quite a lot of our time at Savills is spent working with these incoming investors who have a big war chest for Vietnam. They've raised funds and they have an active, strong interest and active mandate from their board to start investing quite heavily in Vietnam. And this is all sectors. This is residential, office, hotels, service apartment, industrial. Everyone wants to get involved in the real estate property market. So, as long as we can maintain, suitable quality demand, then we're certainly expecting to see that increase going forward. A lot of the larger investors who have been here for a longer time, 10, 15, 20 years even, they're doubling down, they're going all in to make sure that they're really increasing and ramping up their investment in Vietnam. So we're expecting to see substantial increase during next year for a wide range of different projects all across the country.
Vietnam opened up to foreign property investors in 2015 and has seen a massive growth ever since. Buyers from Hong Kong, China, mainland China, Singapore and Korea in particular see Vietnam as a lucrative market with high return on investments. The record-breaking increase of foreign tourists as well as an increase in FDI and new office space will fuel the increase of commercial property. With that said, Vietnam is undoubtedly one of the most interesting places to buy real estate in Asia at the moment.
Hiện nay vùng quanh chúng ta như Đông Nam Á hoặc là châu Á như Trung Quốc, Hàn Quốc, Nhật Bản, Singapore thì là đều gọi là thị trường bất động sản bão hòa rồi. Nên là các nhà đầu tư hầu như là không có lợi nhuận cao ở trong cái thị trường này. Khi mà đầu tư thị trường bất động sản Việt Nam đang có tiềm năng này thì các nhà đầu tư quốc tế người ta bơm tiền rất là nhiều. Như vậy thì cái nhu cầu về nhà ở cho thuê rồi văn phòng hạng A thì đang nhu cầu rất là lớn trong đây, trong 2019.
Industrial and commercial real estates are new driving factors. The US-China trade war is a great opportunity for Vietnam to draw attention of foreign investors by preparing a favorable investing climate. The potential industrial and commercial real estates is outstanding.
Như năm 16, 17 đều có cái sự tăng trưởng về đăng ký đầu tư FDI và trong đó đặc biệt là đầu tư vào khu công nghiệp. Chúng ta tính đến nay chúng ta đã có khoảng trên 300 cái khu công nghiệp chiếm khoảng 90.000 hecta đất. Đấy là theo số liệu chúng tôi đã nghiên cứu thì chúng ta thấy đấy là những cái thành quả và cũng là những cái sức hút của thị trường Việt Nam.
As a whole, foreign buyers accounted for 50% of all successful residential deals, meaning they are not only entering Vietnam to set up operations, but are also committed to keeping their money here. This could explain the 15% rise in prime residential prices in Ho Chi Minh City over the past 2 years.
People often talk about a real estate cycle.
Sure.
Could you elaborate more on this, and also especially for the Vietnamese market, where are we now in the real estate cycle?
Yeah, so the real estate cycle has a few different components. It's got some of the micro factors relating to the supply and demand factors, so for each individual sector, whether it's residential, commercial, hospitality, etc. But also it's driven by the macro economy and the wider business cycle. Then we're still seeing more and more demand. Difficult to judge, but we've seen a sort of 6 to 7 year real estate cycle in Vietnam. I've been here for a few of those, so since 2004. We're a couple, let's say a couple of years in. We're still seeing strong growth. We haven't seen we're starting to see, some tempering, let's say, of new supply in the market, but we're certainly not in any downward or negative situation. So we're still expecting to see strong growth for a couple of years, and then we'll start to see, some of the absorption slow down and things go from there. But as I said, we're in a very strong upward market driven by these huge macroeconomic changes. I mean, Vietnam's posted some fantastic figures this year for GDP growth, and that's going to drive and thrive the real estate market.
Now, some experts believe that credit is currently the bottleneck for the property market this year. So what do you think are the key source of capital coming into the real estate market, and how can this problem be fixed?
We like to have a nice, healthy real estate market and people not to get too overexcited and, borrow too much and develop too much, which can, dramatically shorten the cycle that we spoke about earlier. So there has been some restrictions in credits. More of a tempering, not a drastic reduction. Vietnam takes an active role in fiscal policy and credit to real estate. It's seen as banks have traditionally been very happy to lend to real estate, and the government does take an active role in making sure people don't get too overexcited about that. So in many ways it's a positive. Having said that, developers are always keen to get more credit, and we've seen a lot of that through IPOs. So there's been several large IPOs this year that we've seen. And from that, for Vinhomes, for example, has gone from strength to strength since their IPO. launched a huge amount of residential supply across the country. FDI, as we mentioned earlier, has been a big source. So we've seen some huge developments, $3-4 billion investments from individual companies into the real estate sector, particularly in Hanoi with Sumitomo, for example, in Dongyang, working with BRG, Citibank. So there's often willing and able investors. There's alternative routes for capital, such as IPOs and outside investment and private investment in Vietnam. So the reduction and the reduction on reliance on credit is not necessarily a bad thing, and it helps to make these developers more competitive and making sure that they're delivering product that is really suitable to the market, not just getting a very large bank loan and hoping for the best.
According to the Vietnam Association of Realtors, in 2018, the market absorbed up to 65% of all products launched. However, several issues related to disputes between investors and home buyers, fire protection or temporary fever in areas require new thinking and changes from real estate investors this year.
Ví dụ như là ngày trước thì chúng tôi bán đất nền, sau khi mà đất nền chưa biết một thời gian thì bây giờ có đất nền cộng với cả móng, đó là một sự thay đổi, cập nhật tình hình thị trường rất sát với thực tế. Rồi những các sản phẩm về căn hộ chung cư, các chủ đầu tư cũng thay đổi về mời gọi những các nhà thầu về thiết kế cảnh quan phục vụ cho tiện ích sống nó tốt hơn cho cư dân.
Giving forecasts to the property market trends this year, experts believe that housing transactions in cities around Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, such as Bắc Ninh, Hà Nam, or Bình Dương, will continue to be busy. For apartments, by no means it's a high-end or luxury market being left behind.
Tức là cái phân khúc mà nhà ở dưới 2 tỷ, kể cả chung cư và lẫn nhà đất ấy, như chúng ta thường nói thì sẽ rất là thị trường, người mua rất là đông. Và thứ hai là phân khúc chung cư hạng sang mà tất cả những dự án mà đang áp dụng với công nghệ 4.0 và xanh thì là đang thiếu nghiêm trọng ở thị trường Hà Nội và Thành phố Hồ Chí Minh.
Năm 2018 đã khép lại và chúng ta chứng kiến một năm sôi động và ổn định của thị trường bất động sản. Riêng quý 3 2018 thì chúng ta cũng chứng kiến được sự hưng phấn của thị trường. Và phân khúc cao cấp chiếm 1,5% tỷ trọng. Với phân khúc này có một lượng khách hàng nhất định và có tính thanh khoản khá tốt.
Besides commercial estates, representative of the Ministry of Construction said that the demand for real people continues to be a concern.
Năm 2019, bất động sản vẫn phát triển. Tuy nhiên có sự điều chỉnh lại cơ cấu. Chính phủ đang quan tâm với các cái nhà ở giá thấp, bởi vì chúng ta còn cái đối tượng mà cần cái nhà này còn rất nhiều.
Also this year, the industrial estate segment will be particularly developed. Thus, the development of industrial zones must be better synchronized to attract foreign investors, and attention must be paid to commercial housing to meet accommodating needs.
Các cái đầu tư vào khu công nghiệp thì luôn luôn sẽ kéo theo cái phát triển cái thị trường bất động sản. Bởi vì vào công nghiệp sẽ có tạo ra việc làm, tạo ra các cái nguồn lực kinh tế, tạo ra các thu nhập và phải phát triển các cái hệ thống nhà ở, kéo theo các dịch vụ, kéo theo các hệ thống hạ tầng cho đơn vị ở. Thì đó là các cái nguyên nhân và những cái yếu tố mà chúng tôi tin tưởng rằng cái thị trường bất động sản ở Việt Nam sẽ được hưởng lợi từ các cái hoạt động mà chúng ta tham gia vào các cái tổ chức kinh tế quốc tế.
Following the development momentum from previous years, segments such as condotel, office towers, shop house may account for the bulk of 2019's activity. However, experts say there should be a clear legal framework for new types of real estate so that market can perform better.
2018 witnessed the boom in emergence in new products such as condotel, hometel, officetel, service apartment, and shop house. So what are the prospects for these products in 2019?
With real estate products, you've really, investors and individuals really have to dig in and understand the fundamentals and what is being provided to them. So there's few different categories you mentioned, but if you look at the condotel market, for example, we're typically referring to resort properties that might be connected to some sort of hospitality component, so a hotel. The key thing with any hotel or resort property is the management. Who's going to manage this and who's going to lease it out? We had an issue last year with a lot of rental guarantees, a very competitive market. Who's making this guarantee? You know, what's it backed up by? So I think buyers are being much more cautious about that type of property, and developers are moving back into, let's say, the safer, less risky options that they're providing to customers, such as branded residences and internationally managed resort residences, rather than own brand or unmanaged type resort residences. So I think we'll start to see a lot less condotel on the market, which for us is a bit of a relief, actually. Shop houses are a strong product. It very much depends on the development. So if it's a larger urban development, to have a shop house within that development can be a very, very strong investment. Some projects, Eco Park in Hanoi comes to mind, which has a very strong shop house development. Office Tel, has some merits. This is where you buy a property and then it's supposed to be an office rather than an apartment, right? I don't know many people that work like that, but I think it's an interesting alternative. It allows people to enter some of this type of property for typically a 50-year leasehold rather than a freehold property. So let's say it's kind of a secondary product, can be interesting. So I think that some of these can be positive, and some of the more risky, our preference would be to move more towards these branded type resort property residences, where there's a strong name attached to your property and you can be confident that it's going to be rented out and deliver you a strong return in the future.
Given that an investor have 5 billion Vietnam dong or 220,000 US dollars for investment in the real estate sector, what are your suggestions for his investment this year?
Well, firstly, congratulations. Secondly, with real estate, it's often, buy what you know, I think is always a safe bet. Do your research, don't feel you have to rush into it. There's lots of good opportunities. It depends on your risk profile. Depends how long you're willing to wait. There's some good land opportunities, for example, that are still very affordable, but if you look into the future, then there's some big infrastructure developments coming by, and that can have a dramatic increase on land price. If you're looking for a strong performing residential asset that you can rent out and get a good stable return, then there's plenty of good options in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. If you're looking for more of a lifestyle investment, perhaps coupled with that return, then there can be some good resort property investments. So
once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the show.
We can see from our discussions and also experts' opinions, moving on to 2019, Vietnamese real estate market will grow with generous supply, focusing on large projects, small cities with full service and completed infrastructure, and this will be the market-leading trend. And that also wraps up this edition of BizLine. For more news and updates, please log on to vtv4.vn or our YouTube channel at VTV4Go. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now. Okay, thank you so much, Matt.